its second hour. Karibu sana and welcome to all of our audiences joining us across social media and on KTN News and KTN Home. Welcome to this conversation. All right, so we're having a mental health conversation this hour. It is Health Friday, and as we do that, we're going to look into suicide, big ticket item when it comes to mental health, and we'll be looking at its awareness and prevention. And our guest to help us have that conversation is already seated in the hot seat this morning. Edna Chawia, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to have you here. The Edna we know, normally we don't see her, but a great force to be reckoned with. And so now here is another Edna sitting on this side. So it's great to have you here as well. Thank you so much for being here. We're getting into this hour, and Ndroko CT Muga with you here. And our guest host for this show is architect Sylvia Kasanga. You know, I want to say senator every time. That's the thing that politics will do to you, isn't it? Architect Sylvia Kasanga is also the Board of Trustees chairperson at Lukenya University, and she's steering conversations with us this morning. Welcome once again.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. So there are many things happening at the same time, but I want to tell us about one thing that happens in October, about a month from now. It's the 20th edition of a very special event, and it's Kenya's largest single-day athletics event. It's back. It's in grander style. Like I said, it's the 20th one, and it's in the name of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Takes place on the 29th of October, which is Sunday, and it kicks off from Uhuru Gardens, and you have the chance between now and then to register on www.nairobimarathon.com. Register with 2,000 shillings, and then get ready to run in whatever category you will do. Whatever you do, as you pay, however you participate, all the proceeds of your participation goes towards the Future Makers program, which helps young people, especially girls and people with disability, to learn, earn, and grow. Register today and make a difference in these lives. Edna, Karibu once again. As we go into this conversation, CT Muga is going to welcome you with a proverb from Malawi.
This is our final day of Proverbs from the country of Malawi, otherwise known as the Republic of Malawi. It's a landlocked country. Yes.
They say land-linked. They don't say landlocked.
Okay,
they call it land-linked because they're so linked.
That is a very, very interesting way of putting it. Yes, I agree with you.
Yes, because they have a lot of things they benefit from their immediate neighbors.
Thank you. Land-linked. Very good indeed. Who can tell me what the capital city of Malawi is?
Which capital? Are you looking for commercial or administrative?
Just tell me both.
She knows.
Tell me both. Let's start with commercial.
Blantyre.
Very good. Good. Now don't answer the next one.
Okay.
Administrative.
It's Lilongwe.
Yes, it is Lilongwe. Yes. Excellent. Okay. What is the commercial capital of Kenya?
Kirinyaga Road. Okay, sorry.
Downtown Nairobi.
Nairobi. Okay. What's the administrative capital of Kenya? Nairobi. An upstart is a sparrow trying to marry a hornbill.
Edna, you have the... we have the pleasure of asking CT to say that again.
I know, yeah.
Oh.
An upstart is a sparrow trying to marry a hornbill. Right. Now we're going to ask you your opinion.
What do you make of that, Edna?
What do you think the writers of this proverb were trying to say?
I would need to know the unique characteristics of a sparrow. And
apart from being a bird.
Yeah.
It's small.
Yeah. Oh, apart from and a hornbill.
Has the beak is really big, but it's bigger than a sparrow. Distinctly, in fact, the beak is bigger than the body of the sparrow. Yes.
So there are many ways to view that. So an upstart is a sparrow trying to marry a hornbill. Is it? That would mean I could look at it from the point of view of if you wanna, no matter how small you are, for you to be able to move ahead or move up, then you need to be able to aim for something higher. That's one perspective I think of.
Good.
Yeah.
Ndu would say, voila.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Very good. See, the thing about Proverbs, your perspective can't be wrong. That's your perspective. That is how you interact with the proverb.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Indeed. All right. I guess we'll see more insights into that as we go along.
Yeah.
Suicide prevention and awareness is what we're talking about now on this Health Friday conversation. Edna, once again, thank you for joining us. You are a consultant psychologist, rather, and with Minute Kenya. And so one would assume that you come into you come in touch with a lot of these conversations quite often. Let's start off with suicide, and it could seem like we know exactly what suicide is, and so it's easy for us to discuss what exactly is suicide as we go into this conversation now.
Okay. So suicide, if you were to define it, would be self-injury with the intent of dying. Yeah, that's what suicide would be. Doing something to yourself that would ultimately result to your own or in your own death. That's what suicide would be. That's how I would define it. Yeah.
Okay. And as we look at Kenya today, Kenya specific, have we seen over time that the cases of attempted or unfortunately successful suicide have risen? And if they have, what can we see are the causes behind these cases of suicide?
Okay. Looking at Kenya today, yes, indeed, the cases of suicide have been on the rise. And I know the causes are varied. In fact, we don't even say causes per se. We call them risk factors.
Okay.
You know, because if we were to talk causes, then one thing would automatically result in something else. So rarely do we say we have one specific cause for suicide. In most cases, it's multiple issues that somebody is dealing with. So when we are to look at that, there are definitely the biological aspects. Biological aspects would mean things that would interfere with someone's neurochemistry, which results in a mental illness. Yeah, because when our neurochemistry is interfered with or affected one way or the other, then we may end up having a mental illness like depression or anxiety, which is a risk factor. The other thing we do that affects our neurochemistry is substance use. You know, so anytime people are expose themselves to or indulge in excessive substance use, they're altering their neurochemistry one way or another. But then beyond that, then we have social stressors. We experience so many things. We have financial issues we are going through. We have marital issues and family issues that people are facing. We have sometimes even the fact that other people use it for coping. You know, those who, when we look at people, there are people that we look up to. So when we notice that someone we looked up to might have committed suicide at some point, there are times when that can model to everyone else under them that this is an option. This is something you can do. So I wouldn't really say one specific cause, but I'd attribute it to biological factors. But then beyond that, we have environmental factors, the spaces we live in, the kind of messages we listen to, the kind of people we interact with, social factors, the kind of experiences we go through, trauma, adverse childhood experiences, pain, you know, and things like that, the kind of mental health illnesses we may experience, including substance use, including depression. People who experience psychotic disorders as well may also be at risk, among other things. So it's a whole load of factors that would possibly be risk factors to suicide.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have numbers in terms of those who have attempted suicide and versus those who have been successful, and which numbers outweigh the other?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. So allow me to start with thinking. Those who have thought about suicide, by the way, are very many people to think about suicide at any given time. Sometimes I say even the Kiswahili saying, I wish the ground could open, it's a Kiswahili saying, but allow me to say it in English. I wish the ground would open up and swallow me. It's a suicidal thought. If you think about it, it can be perceived as a suicidal thought. There are times when you can't feel very overwhelmed and you're driving, you're passing by a road, you're in a situation, and for a moment there, the fleeting thought passes by. It's just that you never do anything about it. So the truth is we have very many people. In fact, when we think about suicidality, think like a triangle, you know. At the very base is everyone who thinks about it.
Okay.
So many people will think about it at one point or the other. However, not everybody who thinks about it proceeds to plan for it. Remember, triangle, so we are moving up. So you realize the base has a larger number, but then there's a lesser number moving up for those who actually plan.
Right.
Now, not everybody who plans will attempt. Yeah. So, and not everybody who attempts succeeds. However, the fact that somebody has planned or somebody has attempted is a risk factor.
Okay.
Those are risk factors we have to pay attention to. Because if they attempt again, they might just succeed this time. Yeah. So if I was to look at the numbers, that's how I would think of it. The people who think about it are many. The people who plan are less than those who think about it. And those who attempt are less than those who plan. And those who succeed are also less than those who attempt. Okay. Yes.
You know, I'm curious.
Yeah.
It's always puzzled me. What is it that happens to someone? It can't be one thing. It may be a combination of things. To get to a point where you actually feel that staying alive is a waste of your time. What gets one to that particular place?
Okay. I think one emotion that is, maybe not even one emotion. There are a few emotions that are linked to that particular state. But maybe even before I talk about the emotion, let me tell you, emotions are the center of our lives. Emotions drive our behaviors. That's what, yes.
Clearly.
Emotions drive our behaviors. And in most cases, emotions result from what is in our mind. So if I think I'm not good enough, I will feel worthless or inadequate. And if I feel worthless or inadequate, then I want to hide away from everybody. That's what I mean.
So the thinking, the mind influences our emotion.
Yes. Yeah.
And our emotions also influence our thinking.
They do have an inverse relation, two-sided, bidirectional relationship, yes. But in most cases, the emotion is as a result of the thought. So if you wanted to trace, if you're struggling to figure out the thought, you can start with the emotion. Then you'll get the thought that is linked to that emotion.
Give us an example of that, could you?
Okay.
For example, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, the likelihood is that I'm going to think to do something about that. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
If I'm feeling overwhelmed, there's a reason I'm feeling overwhelmed.
There's so much work, there's pressure in the family, there's something. So that's the feeling of this overwhelming feeling that comes as a result.
So there's so much work is the situation. There's so much going on in the family. Those are situations. And situations we can never control, isn't it? So there's so much work. Everyone is against me. Everyone is coming for me. Those are the situations you're going through. Because there's so much work, I am thinking, oh my God, I can't cope. This is going to kill me. Everyone in my family don't love me. That thought will make me feel overwhelmed as a result. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what you can quickly identify is the emotion. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And you'll even say, I don't know why. So as a therapist, I was to help you, I'd start by tracking, okay, what triggered this feeling of being overwhelmed? Because the thought does not automatically come to us. And yet we have automatic thoughts all the time. You walk into a room, there's a thought that will cross your mind. And you don't even have control over that thought. There's the first thought that crosses your mind when you walk into a room. Who are these people? Why are they looking at me? It's an automatic thought. No matter how confident you are, no matter what there's an automatic thought that will precede and trigger an emotion. That emotion will trigger a behavior. Now, there's processed thought that follows the automatic thought, or that you can deliberately engage in to alter how you feel. Okay? So there's an example I love using. I walk into a room and find a panel of 5 big-bodied gentlemen seated ready to interview me. There are many thoughts that could cross my mind. So I can't determine who sits in the panel. But when I walk in, I might begin to feel sweaty, anxious, my heart is racing, and I can't figure out why. It goes back to when I walked in, how did I appraise that situation? I looked at this gentleman and said, oh my God, there's no way I'm getting this job. These people are too intimidating. I don't think they will like me. I'm not good enough for this position. That thought made me feel anxious. And that anxiety is the reason why I'm sweating, I'm fidgeting. You ask me my name, I've forgotten my name. I can't even, so what was my name again? and I can tell you, your mind can block to the point you actually can't remember. So with awareness, when I know, then I try to track back, and then I need to change the thought. Because my power lies in changing the thought. So instead of thinking, these guys will not like me, why not think, okay, Edna, they've never met you before. They have no reason not to like you. Give yourself a chance. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's how, the moment I think, Edna, they've never met you before, they have no reason not to like you, automatically, my feeling will change. because now I'll feel calmer, maybe even more centered, and as a result, my behavior may also change. You know.
Talking of anxiety, is it the same anxiety where I want to leave and I think I have misplaced my car keys and I start looking and I'm really looking and I'm looking for it. And then my child tells me, but your keys are in your hands.
That's a good one. Although that is more linked to memory lapses.
Yes.
For a moment there's a reason why you have forgotten or you cannot feel your key in your hand.
Is the lapse as a result of my anxiety, or is it that I'm getting old and my mind is beginning to fail?
Can actually be both. Can actually be both. There's an element of definitely as we grow older, we have diminishing capacities as we grow older, unfortunately. Or it's just part of life, and we need to exercise our brains, by the way, to enhance performance for our brains as we grow older. But then beyond that, anxiety makes your functioning shut down. Your executive functioning is slowed down when you're anxious. Okay. Because everything is targeted towards one direction. This pain, this overwhelming feeling you're feeling, this worry you're feeling, whatever it is you're appraising in that situation, is making, so everything is channeled there. Meaning, every other place in your brain that needs you to function well is sort of slowed down as a result.
Is this the point where we now bring in the ecosystem or the environment and how it influences our thinking and in turn influences our emotion? Okay, so
absolutely.
Okay.
And let me just ask you on the issue of thinking.
Yeah.
Because you're saying thinking influences the emotion. So when you are discussing self-awareness, are you also saying then we should control the thinking process as well?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Because we say, remember, the environment or the situation you can't control. You cannot stop what's coming at you. You cannot decide these are the experiences I'll have. You cannot decide whether it will rain or not, whether the sun will shine or not, whether the government will do what you want or not. And it is it. You can't. There are things outside of you you really can't control. However, how you respond to the things that happen or the situations or the environment you are in are within your control. And that is why actually we have these conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we saying then that at the point that it gets to suicide, is there the decision, because now you think about it, you plan it, you attempt it, you succeed. That's a hierarchy that we're looking at, right? So are we saying that at the point where a suicide is attempted, that there's a kind of blocker to that change of thought process? So there's something that stops you from thinking in the opposite direction and you continue with this mal-thinking that gets you to then attempt? So is that where we look at a mental blocker that's happening here, or what happens in there that thought cannot change?
Okay, I'll explain. Now, when somebody begins to think about suicide, they're feeling cornered. It's like being stuck in that corner, and no matter which direction you're looking, there's no solution that works, isn't it? So you're feeling, I can't pull through this again. I don't think I have what it takes to get out of this situation. I'm done. So you're thinking of suicide as a solution in that moment. Is it a good solution? No, because it costs you your life. However, the person who's thinking about it is feeling so hopeless and so helpless. They have nothing else left. Why are they feeling hopeless and helpless? Because of how they have appraised the situation that they are in. From where they sit, there is no way out of this situation. When I feel there is no way out, I'm better off out. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's, and I'm always careful to say there are two kinds of people who can commit suicide. One is the planner. There's someone who will actually plan systematically over time, and they'll actually achieve. But then there's someone who does not necessarily plan. They may have poor coping, but they don't necessarily plan. So you wake up one day and you're told, the wife you have been married to for 5 years, or for 20 years, or 25 years, has been having another relationship, and all the 5 children you have are not your children.
That one is a tough one.
That's a very tough one.
That's the thing. So in that moment, you get that message, you are just walking out of the building. You can walk into the road and just die. Because in that moment, everything has just been shut down. My past is a lie. I have nothing else left to live for. You may not even have fully thought about what are the consequences. Actually, don't think about the consequences. You're just thinking, I need to get out of this place I am in right now. I feel trapped. I need to get out. I feel I can't do it anymore. I need to get out. So you don't think beyond. You don't think beyond that thought. And that's why we look at, if we were to look at prevention, then we would have to come back to what are the coping strategies you have.
Okay.
If you are caught up in that situation, is there someone you can call? Is there someone I just need to take a walk. Is there a place you can sit?
And I have to ask this question.
Yeah.
When we think of the structure of what we call a traditional society, were suicides common, or are they even evidenced?
I don't think they were evidenced. I don't think many of them may have been reported. Common, maybe not. But then it's also hard for us to tell because we have no data to back that entirely. Have we been told of instances where people committed suicide? Yes, they are there. Do they look like there were very few? Yes, they do. But then you realize, even we say we have many suicides because there's more reporting. So when there's no reporting or less reporting, then you cannot really justify if there are more or less. Yeah.
It's an interesting discussion because, yes, almost everything we will say about it has a truism attached to it. Because one, it is argued that the support system that one has, and you've alluded to it, that if you feel you're alone, now why do you feel you're alone? Because there is no support system that you can attach yourself to. Now, the so-called traditional setup had that.
That's true.
It was there. Now, again, a support system could also be adverse.
That's true.
It could be toxic, okay?
That's true.
But it exists. Now, this balance, and this is why I brought in the environment and its contribution, because we argue that human beings evolve, but our evolution seems to work towards our extinction, because the more we evolve, the more we hear of people killing themselves or taking their lives. So, what is it about our evolutionary process that we seem to have missed? Or what is it about us as human beings and certain hard drive traits that we have we missed in our evolutions, so that this killing of self has taken a very, 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 very prominent role in our lives? What is it?
I like your perspective, an interesting perspective there, because I'm just thinking, it's like the more we simplify life, the easier it is. If you look at back in the day, life was a lot harder. They had to be a lot more, they had to be very resilient. It wasn't very easy to think about suicide as an option, isn't it?
You're too busy to think of suicide.
You are too busy, exactly. You had too many things to do. So it's not the first thought. It looks like it was not necessarily the first thought that would cross people's minds back in the day. However, now we have time, honestly, and now we are aware because we are seeing it happening all around us, isn't it? Now we have sometimes even more resources, accessibility to the things we can use to commit the said suicide, among other things. We may not exactly have enough people telling us, don't lose hope, or enough activities or things that give us a reason not to lose that hope, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's that's how I would perceive what you have just shared. It's like the simpler, okay, if you ask the older people, this life would look really simple.
Yeah.
Because we don't have to work as hard to we have to work hard, but we don't have to go to the shamba to earn a living, do half the things they used to do. We are not doing the manual work and things like that. So not to mean we are working less, but life looks simpler.
Simpler.
Yeah, if you were to compare the two. And yet the simpler it is, the harder it is. Our children get to enjoy. Our children practically live
very differently.
Very
I
different.
just want to weigh in a little.
Can we take a break on that?
Yes.
And then we'll come back and have that weigh in. It's 28 minutes to 8 o'clock. Having a conversation this morning with Edna Chawia, and we're looking at suicide awareness and prevention, how to navigate these tough waters. We'll be back right after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Angusha Kotroli kila wiki na Carrefour. Shika Economy White Sugar at only $3.65, Daima UHT Milk at $39, Fresh Beef Cubes at $3.79, na Tomato Loose at only 49 shillings. Angusha Kotroli na Carrefour.
Get inspired by Afrimax.
A continent bursting with creativity.
Meet artists, designers, and cultural icons.
Discover African lifestyle and culture.
As diverse and exciting as the continent itself.
This is Afrimax.
Barabara kabisa shabiki wa Radio Maisha 102.7, tuko mbele pamoja. Tutazungumzia msimu mpya wa ligi ya Premier nchini England EPL.
Lakini wakati kuna kusema talent will win you games, experience will win you trophies. Na bila shaka yoyote hivyo ndivyo Pep Guardiola na vijana wake wa Manchester City, the treble winners, walivyofanya katika mechi 10 za mwisho na kutawazwa mabingwa wa ligi kuu ya Uingereza. Ama vipi Katila Maisi?
Sisi kama Kiburi FC, the mighty Manchester United, this time round tumekuja kuchachisha, tumekuja kuleta noma. Catch me every single Saturday on Vibes, Radio Africa's #1 audio-visual reggae and dance station.
Enga sartage kuibun kitishin ba Berura FM kaabilita apke nebo English Premier League. Ongeten taunet aboy ko gesunet nebo season nebo 2023-2024.
Na msimu uliopita ilikuwa na makeke na mambo mengi, lakini kwa sasa unasemaje? Sema kwamba tusahau yaliyopita, tugange yajayo. Radio Maisha Vibes Radio bila kuisahau Berura pamoja na Spice FM na kuletea matangazo ya moja kwa moja ligi kuu ya Uingereza msimu wa mwaka 2023 mwaka 2024. Standard Media,
the home of EPL.
Mr. DJ mziki tunangoja, mchelewa mziki tunangoja.
Umetuweka na mziki inashika kutoka kwa kanisa na paka kila boda.
Uko kwa Yesu ni full vibe, vibe. Uko kwa Yesu ni full vibe, vibe.
Uko kwa Yesu ni full vibe, vibe, vibe. I say together. Vibe, vibe.
Those who are out there who want to start into entrepreneurship, use whatever you have. Live within your means. Start your business within your means. But the most important thing is start. It won't hurt. You might get burnt. We all get burnt along the way. But pick yourself up and push on.
For started from a very young age because my father used to have an open car, which we used to like a lot. BMW is a driver's car. It's one of the very addictive cars you have.
In particular, I've fallen in love with the Subaru Forester.
The suicide rates are much higher because of this loneliness. And you find, in fact, the loneliness is not just even amongst the young people. The young people may have other social determinants maybe, but as they grow older, the older generation, you find very lonely older people. Korea, for instance, and Japan is having its own challenges when it comes to the social discourse where people are not meeting face to face. You know, there's less and less of that. Human beings were not meant to be, living by yourself. And I think that is the one thing about our traditional African system that we should say we really miss. And if there was a way to incorporate that back into our current lifestyles and find a balance, it would be great. My book club reading a couple of months ago was on Ikigai, which talks about, the secrets of long life. That a few areas in Japan have figured it out where people live to many years, over 100 plus. And one of the things that actually comes out is the social interactions, that they go into these groupings where they support each other. They have groupings where people support each other. So if you're financially down, you have a safe space, a safe group where you can pull each other up. When somebody's a bit down, you pull each other up. And these are important conversations we need to bring back to our young people as we speak. The creation of a safe space. A lot of women have sort of figured this thing out. Women are good at, having social groupings where they can support each other. Some of our churches...
Are you saying men are not good at having social
I just
groupings?
gave an example.
Well, maybe she can tell us, are they?
Actually, I have seen a group of men who have formed, a bond which is a safe space for themselves. And it's beautiful because then they support each other. And when somebody is down, you pull each other. You pull each other up. I think these are very important conversations we must have today and push for such. Remember when we were growing up, and for those of us who are older in the African system, you were always in a group of what do you call them? In an age group. You grew up in an age group, and you went through different stages of life together. You were mentored, and you had people looking out for you, and then it was kind of defined then which way you're going. Now we're in a world that is super evolving fast. We are barely coping, and in Africa, like I always say, we are leapfrogging because we are sort of trying to catch up with the West. Because of all the social media connectivity, we are seeing what's happening in the West. We want to catch up with the West. But at the same time, tumeacha mila zetu. So what are we becoming? Mwacha mila, we are now beginning to float around without being rooted. And that is one of the reasons, I think, why our society is struggling so much with mental illness, because we are not rooted. We've forgotten the things that make us solid and grounded. And then we have lost this social connectivity, which is also affecting our family unit, the base at which, we draw strength from, and growth.
Do we see this? And I think this is one of the, we've seen that question also pop up this morning. And that, because if we do look at the statistics, whether it's worldwide or the few statistics that we have here in Kenya, that more men tend to commit and succeed at suicide than women. Why is that? And is that what you've seen as well?
Well, there's an element of truth there, or based on the statistics that have been out there, that there's a high number of men who may commit suicide in comparison to women. But I'd explain it this way. I think women, you're right in saying women have social support of sorts. Women easily destroy each other, but women don't hold back from sharing their most intimate struggles with each other. So they are very open and very vulnerable. The only problem is, on the flip side, they easily use that against each other. But you see, sometimes I say, when we hold back from sharing ourselves because of shame, because of fear of being judged, we are at a higher risk than someone who shares, are ashamed, but they get the help. You get? So sometimes I think women, yes, have an easier time handling shame. The place of a man in society is very prideful and he needs to look strong. There are all these narratives we've built around the men. You need to look strong. You need to look like you have it all together. You need to look like you're in control. You need to look like you're domineering. You need to give us a sense of direction, among other things. So what happens is, because of all those narratives that the men then have to live up to, and I don't even think I cover them in their entirety, then they're less likely to ask for help when they need it. They have less intimate conversations with each other. I think when men meet, would you ever tell a gentleman, yesterday I slept hungry. Yes. Yeah.
Or yesterday, my wife clobbered me with a sufuria.
That's the thing. Would you tell men that when you're seated with them anywhere?
Why on earth would I tell them such a thing?
That's the thing. That's the thing. So you see, what we think, and unfortunately, we like men for being in control. But being in control sets up men.
But are they really in control? I mean, this control that men are supposed to have. Well, speaking of, I mean, are we really in control? And what does that control mean? In essence, I mean, we think we're in control.
That's the thing.
And most African women, in their wisdom, make the African men think they're in control.
Yeah, true.
They understand it very, very well.
Yeah.
So, and why do you need to be in control?
You're right.
As we look at prevention and also look at awareness of this, a lot of times we hear, I mean, we read a number of things in terms of when somebody says something, it could possibly be a cry for help, and how seriously should you take those cries for help. I remember one of my closest friends did actually cry for help, and he said he was going to take his own life, and we all kind of thought like, okay, well, maybe there's an overwhelming situation. He did take his own life. He did succeed. It haunts me to this day because I think, well, if we had thought about it a little bit more seriously, perhaps we could have then been able to, have a chat with him. So when somebody says something like that, what should you do? How should you rally support? At that point, is it a cry for help or is it crying wolf? What is it?
Well, you're better off taking precaution than being careless at the expense of someone's life. So in therapy, we never say there's no one you should anytime someone cries out for help, take them seriously. Take them seriously, interrogate what is going on first before you can decide they're just crying wolf.
But then there's something again about this modern society in which we live in. People don't seem to be very concerned genuinely about other people's problems. They don't actually want to know or forget. Let's start with hear. They may want to hear, but they don't really want to know.
That's true.
Not really.
Yeah.
They prefer to associate with people who are not going to tell them their problems or people who they believe don't have problems. That they're comfortable with. But they are very uncomfortable with grappling with issues, especially personal issues of... Let's talk about men. Most men would prefer to pay lip service to it. No, Paul, have a drink. And that's done. So now, even when we talk about the norms where people are supposed to share and people are supposed to be able to understand that this sharing is part of your wellness, with all these competing interests that we have in modern life, this part of our evolution, and all of them competing for space. This space where you arrive at, for lack of a better expression, self-realization and understanding of what you need to do, it takes a backseat. Because everything else seems to be of importance and has an immediacy to it that calls for your attention every single day and every moment. Yes.
I think culturally, we don't support... Culturally, sharing problems is found to be like complaining. It's perceived as complaining. You're getting lacking gratitude, not having a focus. So that also is something that can feed into the people not sharing whatever issues they may have in the situation they are in. You're getting, because when they share, what am I supposed to do with it? You're sharing with me so that I do what with it? Then something else is, we are also not built to handle people's emotions. I mean, when we go for funerals, you've lost a loved one, be strong. What am I doing? I don't know what to do with your tears, so I need you to stop crying. The only way I know to help you stop crying is to remind you, this is God's will. You just be strong. Yeah, you'll be fine. God knows, God's will has been done.
All will be well.
All will be well. It's because I don't know what to do with your emotions. If I came here and just broke down and started crying, that's the thing.
Yeah.
What do you do with
like, okay,
exactly?
So, yeah.
What do you do with?
We'd give you water to drink.
That's the thing. And possibly tell, do you need a minute?
Yeah.
Do you need a bathroom break? So you need to push me out of your space as fast as possible
to make
so
you more comfortable.
Actually, it's not me you're trying to make.
Me who is pushing you away. It's for me to be more comfortable than you.
Exactly. You're looking at your own need. You're not factoring in my need. So even when you're offering someone a drink, they tell you, I'm going through this. Aya here. Kunywa moja. Basically, you're dealing with your need. I don't know what to do with you, so let me do something that I think you need so that you get out of my space.
So how can you help somebody who's suicidal? What can you do? What can we do? Because, for example, somebody's not going to walk up to you and say, well, Sylvia, today I think I'm going to kill myself. No, probably you would have heard other things that they would have said before that that would then end up in that, thought. How can we help? What do we hear that we need to act on?
Actually, everything we hear, most of the things or everything we hear, we need to act on. I say people need to start paying attention a little more. But I can't pay attention to you if I can't pay attention to myself. If I'm floating through life, I will float through your life. So there's an element of self. We need to go back to that place where there's an element of self-discovery and self-acceptance. When I am accepting of myself, I'll easily hear you when you talk to me. When I'm not accepting of myself or not comfortable in my own skin, when you bring me problems, I'll be uncomfortable with the problems you're bringing me, and I need to push them back because they don't align with who I am becoming. So I'd say it's not necessarily one specific thing that we can do, one particular thing that would automatically address everything. Even the conversation we are having here today creates awareness. It gives someone one particular thing to think about that they can do something about. Another thing that goes beyond that is people need to become more and more self-aware. Because when we become more and more self-aware, we become more self-accepting and therefore can practice self-compassion. When we can practice self-compassion, when I tell you, you say, "Good morning, Edna," I'll say, "Wow, I'm not sure it's a good morning." You'll hear me. Because that happens a lot and we don't hear people. We really don't hear people. Because I'm expecting you, generically or socially, I just expect you to just say, "Good morning, good morning." And even if you didn't say good morning back, I didn't hear that part. Because my expectation, I go with my expectation. I don't go with what you said. So we need to be more and more present to what each of us is saying. But then we also need to learn to be true friends with each other. I always say the people who hurt people have their own hearts. Deal with your heart so that you stop hurting the people around you. Then you can effectively help even the people in your space. But for as long as we have more and more people hurting and then they're not aware of the pain they're going through, then they cause pain in return. And therefore they are unable to avail themselves. I don't have extra. Where do I get the extra bandwidth to support you when I am in pain myself? Does that make sense? So sometimes I also don't blame people for not hearing because we are all lost in our own stories. But then it helps to deal with my own story or clarify my own story so that I can hear you when you talk to me. We really need to go back to, and it goes back to the social support. Social support is a significant protective factor for all mental health issues. Just having that one person you can tell, "I don't want to talk, I just want to walk. Can you walk with me?" But the people don't realize the magic of that. But then again, we're also dealing with poverty. So there are people who will be thinking, okay, I feel like this, but everyone is chasing the next big shilling. So where am I supposed to be getting this person who I will sit down with and talk with and walk with? There are many factors that would prevent that, but as much as possible, we can use what is quickly within our reach. And that starts with just beginning to listen to each other, genuinely and sincerely. When somebody tells you, "I'm thinking of killing myself," please take them seriously. Interrogate why. The sad thing about suicide is it is truly preventable.
Do you stay? Because oftentimes you hear as well that somebody in that position would be classified as what you may want to call stubborn in resolve. That they say, "Leave me alone, this is it." Do you keep coming back until there's a break? What do you do?
Actually, you do. And I don't think they don't all behave the same way. Not all of them will dismiss. Can we prevent all suicides? Maybe not. I don't think we can ever get to a place where we can say we can prevent suicides 100% because there are different factors that would predispose someone to this. The snap suicide, you cannot say because you don't know what someone will encounter that would push them to that. However, can we prevent most of them? Yes, we can. So the idea is as much as possible, do your best. In the place you are, do your best. If somebody tells you, if they're behaving in a manner likely to suggest they're thinking of harming themselves, that also comes with just self-harm. You notice somebody with marks, weird marks around their body. They're burning their body, they're scratching themselves with things, they're inserting things in their body and things like that. Those could also be telltale signs. There are many things to look out for that would tell you, please pay attention to the people around your space. But then it's also easy to pay attention when this person is connected to you. If you're alone or you're walking through life alone, nobody will see. Therefore, that also puts you at risk. If you live alone, you have no friends, you don't interact with anybody, then it means even when you think about suicide, there'll be no one to quickly notice, we need to pay attention to so-and-so and help in the place that they are.
Is it still illegal in Kenya? And I'm thinking that we're already dealing with very difficult situation. And if somebody attempts suicide and fails, they've committed a crime against the state.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that, and why should it be an issue of the law and illegality? Should it be?
Well, the jury is out. People have different perspectives on that, and the law itself contradicts itself, because there's a right to life of dignity, there's a right to health, there's a right to, you should not be discriminated against, isn't it? Among other things, you should receive the best care when you're struggling with, that's part of, those are part of our rights. But then when you say you arrest somebody who's attempted suicide, then it goes against those rights. So even the law has aspects where it contradicts itself. However, law supersedes everything. We cannot really, we can challenge it, we can question it, we can do our best, and lawmakers can actually do their best to try and see if they can push to have those aspects of law change. But yes, indeed, currently it's still very illegal to commit suicide. If you attempt suicide and you're caught, yes, you will be arrested, and yes, you do serve a 2-year term, I think, or you pay a fine because of that. So it's punishing you. Now, the argument we have as psychologists is, or even people in the mental health space is, you're punishing me for not being mentally well. You get? And that in itself is a problem. And those are some of the arguments that we are trying to push to the best of our ability to just see if we can have that law reviewed.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say is the mental health situation in Kenya? 1 being it's very good, 10 being it's,
I'd say 5 or
so
even 3.
We're not doing too well, are we?
No, I don't think we're doing too well. And if I was to look at that, we think mental health is only about the mental health disorders, but then we have mental health issues that come before the disorders. And those are the everyday stressors that we deal with. Everyday stressors that affect the way we feel about ourselves.
When now this environment and ecosystem thing come into play.
Exactly.
So if cost of living is high, I'm very likely to be mentally stabilized.
Financial issues are actually a mental health issue. Yes. Yeah. So if the cost of living on its own, isn't it costing? Is it making you have sleepless nights? Is it affecting your ability to eat? Is it affecting your relationships? Is it affecting your ability to function? Are you able to concentrate as you should at the workplace? For as long as those things are checked off, then you're struggling with your mental health
so
in that regard.
MP lies more than the neighboring constituency's MP. That is also a problem.
Well, it depends also on how important it is to you. You're right. It depends on how invested you are in that, or how important it is to you. Because if you're very invested in your MP and you feel their lying is directly impacting you, and it can, there are those who are closely allied to them, so it can really affect them.
Why I bring this? Because essentially we're saying that relationships and how we relate to people are often at the center of everything that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So when you have a situation like what I see in Kenya, not as evolving, but continuing to evolve in this very direction, where we quantify people, we quantify the things your net worth is considered to be your net value, okay? And so we relate to you according to that quantification. So that aspect of relationship is likely to have a snowballing effect, which in turn will ensure that this situation we are speaking about will actually get worse.
It's highly likely, actually, because we focus on all the wrong things and forget your social worth is of greater value than your net worth. Actually, your social worth, you can have people carry you through the worst seasons, but your money can't always do everything for you.
Indeed,
that's true.
It can't do everything for you, but people can carry
Kenyans more and more believing that your money can do everything for you.
Unfortunately. Unfortunately. But I also think that's also because of the models we have. It looks like the people who've made it in our villages are just the ones who had money. The people who make something of them are just the ones who have. It looks like. Our definition of making it or success is the problem. I'd think of it that way. Because if we were to define success with the kind of successful relationships we have, there's more longevity
in it.
Exactly. Yeah.
The mental health conversation in this country is one that one would hope would have been gripped a little bit more seriously, even as we come to the end of this conversation. What are we hoping will be front and center when it comes to dealing with mental health? Suicide now being one of those factors under mental health generally. We're seeing some movement, some conversations, but should it be treated as a national disaster as was prescribed a couple of years ago?
Well, I think so. I think mental health issues should be given a lot of attention and be treated, especially because they're preventable. So when they keep impacting lives and affecting and taking away, affect quality of life, affect society, affect perception, encourage, when we talk about a happy society, I mean, mental health issues are the reasons why we don't experience happiness in our society, if you think about it, So yes, indeed, that is something that needs to be paid attention to. Yes, indeed. If it is possible to declare, to think of it as a real disaster or a national disaster that we need to put more focus and resources on, I think that's something that should be done so that everybody gets help. Because the flip side of it is, if we don't pay attention to it, only those who have resources
will get
to access the help.
How can people access you? I think is a question that has also come today. If somebody needed to reach out and speak to you, Edna, how can they do that?
Okay. So I do consult for Minet. So one of the ways to reach me would be through Minet. I know that is possible. But then beyond that is through social media as well. Yeah, you look for Edna Chawia. You will find me. I'd like to believe I'm the only one out there.
And you will respond.
Yes, and I will respond.
Maybe I can just give a take home that I've taken from you today. Is the issue of self-awareness. And because, a lot of mental health issues they start at a young age. In fact, they say from the age of 13, 14 is when mental health issues begin. So my take home is that this conversation on self-awareness and emotional intelligence needs to happen to that demographic. I think our high schools and our campus needs to emphasize on self-awareness and emotional intelligence amongst our youth.
Very, very true, because it will help with self-regulation. If you can master the self, you can take charge of the world.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Edna Chawia, consultant, psychologist, thank you for being here this morning as we look at those important issues. Thanks for being our guest on the Situation Room this morning. Conversations continue. It's 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life